Americans will run out of money by January 1st. Imagine this. Millions of Americans are on the verge of financial collapse as January 1st approaches midnight. How did we arrive at this location? What factors are causing this worrying pattern? We go deep into the impending crisis that might empty bank accounts and crush aspirations across the country in this enlightening film. We reveal the hard facts that American households must deal with, from stagnant income to rising debt and unplanned bills. And we look at immediate ways to avert financial disaster. Come along as we explore the meaning of this remarkable phenomena for the future of our economy and work through its complexities. A concealed crisis that poses an unprecedented threat to financial stability is hovering over American households in the aftermath of a thriving economy and apparent prosperity. Even if the economy appears to be expanding, there remains a dangerous imbalance due to underlying causes like stagnating salaries and the constant rise in living expenses. Many families are overburdened and find it difficult to pay for necessities like housing, healthcare, and education. The core of the crisis is this disparity between income and spending, which makes millions of people vulnerable to financial difficulty. The weight of mounting debt, which has tightened its grip on the necks of many Americans, exacerbates the problem. Debt commitments erode already tight budgets, from soaring credit card balances to the burden of student loans and unforeseen medical expenditures. Families are left with little choice but to become imprisoned in a debt payback cycle and unable to escape the bonds of unstable finances. For many households, the hope of financial recovery is shadowed by the specter of growing debt. Even the most well-laid-out financial plans can quickly fall apart due to unforeseen events, which adds to the complexity of life's unpredictable nature. Unexpected costs, such as an unexpected illness, a car breakdown, or a house repair, can send families into crisis mode. People find it difficult to make ends meet when they don't have enough money saved or access to emergency supplies, and they frequently turn to extreme means to get through difficult times. It is more important than ever to take preventive measures and implement systemic changes to protect against financial disaster in the face of such uncertainty. The significant gap between American households' income and expenses is the root cause of the looming financial disaster. Wages have stagnated as a result of failing to keep up with the rising cost of living and the constant rise in living expenses. Families are severely strained by this disparity and must confront the difficult task of balancing their finances against the steadily rising cost of living. Essential expenses, such as housing, healthcare, groceries, and schooling, have grown to be heavy weights that leave little opportunity for savings or financial flexibility. The loss of purchasing power, which is made worse by inflationary pressures that reduce the value of every hard-earned dollar, exacerbates the problem. The gap between income and expenses gets wider when prices rise because households are less able to stretch their budgets to pay for needs. The financial security of individual households is threatened by this inflationary strain, which also weakens the resilience of the economy as a whole. In addition, the gap between income and expenditures feeds a vicious cycle of financial vulnerability. By making families compromise on spending discretionary money as necessities, options that were before seen as indulgences, like eating out or traveling, become more and more unaffordable for people who are having financial difficulties. In addition to having an adverse effect on consumers' immediate well-being, this cycle of deprivation inhibits economic growth by reducing consumer spending and lowering demand. Urgent action is required to address the underlying causes of this problem and restore financial stability for all Americans as the income-expenditure disparity increases. One of the main causes of the coming financial crisis that many American households are confronting is growing debt loads. People all around the country are entangled in a web of debt responsibilities, which might include credit card balances, student loans, and medical expenditures. These financial obligations take a severe toll on available resources and obstruct efforts to achieve long-term financial security. Paying off debt takes up a large amount of income for many families, leaving little left over for savings or discretionary spending. The accumulation of debt not only intensifies pre-existing financial difficulties, but also feeds a vicious cycle of financial instability as people strive to escape the bonds of debt. The predatory character of some loan methods, which prey on weak people and make their financial problems worse, exacerbates the problem. Borrowers are frequently forced farther into debt by high interest rates, unstated costs, and forceful collection practices, which exacerbates their financial difficulties and the overall load of debt. Furthermore, the widespread stigma associated with debt might discourage people from asking for support, which can exacerbate their financial hardship and sense of isolation. Urgent action is required to address the underlying causes of this crisis and offer help to individuals struggling with excessive debt commitments as debt burdens continue to rise. By means of focused interventions and comprehensive reforms, policymakers may mitigate the debt load on American households and create a path towards a fairer and more successful financial future. Unexpected emergencies pose a serious danger to the financial security of many American households in the unstable world of personal finance. Unexpected costs, such as unanticipated medical emergencies, house repairs, or auto breakdowns, can severely damage carefully adjusted budgets and put families in danger of going bankrupt. People are left struggling to pay for these unplanned expenses without sufficient savings or emergency cash, frequently turning to high-interest loans or credit cards to make ends meet. In the long run, however, these Band-Aid fixes only serve to exacerbate financial distress as debt loads and interest accumulate. In addition, the impact of emergency costs is amplified in the absence of a strong safety net, making people more susceptible to financial ruin in times of need. Medical emergencies can easily turn into unmanageable debt, putting a great deal of hardship on individuals and families that do not have access to cheap healthcare services or adequate health insurance coverage. A homeowner's exposure to the financial consequences of natural disasters or structural damage can also be increased by inadequate housing aid or home insurance, which feeds the vicious cycle of financial instability. The financial stability of individuals is still greatly threatened by emergency costs. Therefore, policymakers should give priority to bolstering social safety nets and increasing the number of inexpensive healthcare, housing, and insurance options available. Policymakers can assist lessen the financial burden of these crises and encourage better resilience in communities across the country by giving people the resources and support they need to weather unforeseen events. Comprehensive policy measures that focus on the underlying causes of economic instability and inequality are necessary to address the complex issues posed by the looming financial crisis. Prioritizing programs to increase wages, rein in inflation, and lessen household debt in the United States is imperative for policymakers. Families can have more purchasing power and financial stability by reducing the income expenditure gap through the implementation of pay growth incentives and minimum wage hikes. Furthermore, sensible monetary policy and targeted price restrictions are two ways to reduce inflation and lessen the financial burden on consumers as a result of increased living expenses. Legislators also need to concentrate on programs that reduce debt, especially when it comes to medical bills and school loans. People who are struggling under the weight of crippling debt obligations may receive much-needed respite through the implementation of debt relief programs and loan forgiveness efforts. Furthermore, increasing Americans' access to reasonably priced healthcare and education can aid in preventing debt buildup in the future and encourage greater financial resilience. Furthermore, strengthening social safety nets by increasing access to food assistance programs, affordable housing initiatives, and unemployment benefits can be a vital source of support for families and vulnerable individuals who are struggling financially. Additionally, strengthening resilience and lowering susceptibility to economic shocks require initiatives to increase financial literacy and provide people with the knowledge and skills necessary to make wise financial decisions. Policymakers may contribute to improved financial stability and economic mobility for all Americans by providing people with the information and skills needed to navigate complicated financial landscapes. Ultimately, lawmakers may contribute to the creation of a more just and prosperous future for people and families across the country by putting into practice focused policy solutions that deal with the underlying causes of the impending financial crisis. Unexpected emergencies pose a serious danger to the financial security of many American households in the unstable world of personal finance. In addition, the impact of emergency costs is amplified in the absence of a strong safety net, making people more susceptible to financial ruin in times of need. Medical emergencies can easily turn into unmanageable debt, putting a great deal of hardship on individuals and families that do not have access to cheap healthcare services or adequate health insurance coverage. A homeowner's exposure to the financial consequences of natural disasters or structural damage can also be increased by inadequate housing aid or home insurance, which feeds the vicious cycle of financial instability. The financial stability of individuals is still greatly threatened by emergency costs. Therefore, policymakers should give priority to bolstering social safety nets and increasing the number of inexpensive healthcare, housing, and insurance options available. Policymakers can assist lessen the financial burden of these crises and encourage better resilience in communities across the country by giving people the resources and support they need to weather unforeseen events. Subscribe now to stay informed on policy solutions and strategies to combat the impending financial crisis. Join us in shaping a more resilient and prosperous future for all Americans. Subscribe today.